Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at the British Royal Armouries taking a look at some of the particularly interesting guns in their reference collection, like this Russian SR-3 Vikhr, or Whirlwind. This is a very compact 9x39 caliber, basically a PDW. There are a number frankly, there are a number of compact carbines, you could say, in Russian service in 9x39, alongside very similar sorts of guns in Western service in 300 Blackout. Think the SIG Rattler, that are developed to be highly concealable. This was specifically made for CQB counterterrorism operations and also VIP protection. And it was very deliberately intended to be the sort of thing that could be carried concealed under a jacket. In a few minutes, we'll get to some of the specific design features around that. But the point was a gun that is powerful, it's like effectively powerful with a short barrel and a very small form factor. And cartridges like 9x39 and 300 Blackout are particularly good at doing that. You can get a fairly heavy subsonic projectile with a suppressor. Now, the Vikhr didn't come standard with a suppressor, but like guns like the SIG Rattler, it can fit a suppressor, and then with a suppressor and subsonic ammunition, you have the potential for a very quiet weapon as well. Now, this was developed in the early 1990s at the Central Scientific Research Institute for Precision Machine Engineering, one of the two Russian small arms development facilities now that have quite the impressive acronyms. At any rate, the center is in Klimovsk. It's part of the Rostec, like, overarching Russian government-owned corporate family. And at any rate, this was developed for the same purpose as guns like the OTS-12 and OTS-14 Groza at about the same time. So early 1990s is when development is going on. The first of these guys is actually produced in 1996, and this was in fact adopted by Russian federal security services for things like VIP protection. Now, there's a modernized version. We'll get to that in a minute, but first, let's take a closer look at the specific features on this guy. We're going to start with this thing folded up like this, because this is a very compact little carbine, little rifle, PDW, I'm not sure even exactly what to call it. We have 20 round mag, of course it's chambered for 9x39, a 6.1 inch barrel with a muzzle brake here that is clearly designed for a right-hander, so it's going to vent only up to the right to help control muzzle climb from the right shoulder. Top folding stock. This weighs in at a mere 4.6 pounds, so a very light gun, very compact. You can certainly see how this would fit nice and easily under a jacket or something. It's a very slim design. And we've got, by the way, sling swivels, one on the back here, and a loop up here on the front sight block. So very easy to sling in a concealed manner. Now, to open the stock, we're going to pull these guys forward. And as soon as you pull this up, the spring-loaded butt plate is going to clear the top of the receiver and snap open. And then we have a hinge here and a locking catch down there. That snaps into place, and you're left with a good length of pull, but this is going to be a relatively fragile stock because there's not a lot of strength to it. And your cheek weld is this basically sharp metal edge on the side there. So it's not particularly comfortable. They're trading compactness for user comfort. All right, go ahead and pull the mag. This is the 20 round mag that was developed for and with the SR3. Proprietary to 9x39. This doesn't use 5.45 or 7.62x39 millimeter magazines. The charging handle is up here, much like a VZ61 Skorpion. Pull that back to cycle it. Pull it back. There we go, all the way. This was done to, again, keep the gun compact, so you don't have a charging handle sticking out the side of the gun somewhere. Now, what's really interesting to me is this is essentially the VSS Vintorez, or AS-VAL action. The designers simply took the integral suppressor and longer barrel assembly off of it, gave it a short barrel, and some of these sort of compact features, and ran with it. So it's not an AK. It is not quite, I don't think, parts interchangeable with a Vintorez, but it is mechanically a VSS Vintorez, which means, pop the top cover, which is, by the way, pinned in place up there, means we've got two springs here because we've got the recoil spring for the bolt and we've got the spring for the striker. By the way, this is, of course, striker fired, or actually, technically speaking, you should probably say linear hammer fired because there is a floating firing pin in the bolt that this linear hammer hits when it goes forward. We do have ambidextrous controls here. Let me show you these before I take it all the way apart. Fire and safe, just a very simple lever, and then a cross bolt push through. It is currently on semi-auto, 1 dot. You can push it through for full auto, which is 3 dots, and you can see we've got our other selector lever there. All right, to disassemble this, I need to take the main recoil spring out first. That looks very AK, although it isn't actually quite, and we do have a polymer buffer back here. Interestingly, we have a little bit of a buffer around the release catch as well. This is, you have a spring-loaded release catch here, so you have to push that in order to unlock the top cover just to keep it secure. We then have our striker or linear hammer spring, which we can pull out here. So as with the AS-VAL or Vintorez, this keeper can come off, so you just want to be careful that that doesn't come off accidentally or it'll go flying across the room and you'll never see it again. Then we can pull the linear hammer out. It comes all the way to the back and then lifts out of the receiver. We can then pull the bolt carrier all the way back, lift that out as well, and we can pull out the bolt. So we have a multi-lug bolt here, but again, not a Kalashnikov. It is rotating, but this is the bolt out of a Vintorez. This is striker fired, so it's got a very simple fire control group in there. This lever on the side here is actually the full auto disconnect. So when the bolt goes forward, it is going to push down on that ledge right there, which lifts up the back. When the striker's in place, this little bottom tab right here hits the back end of that disconnect. When that lifts up, it slides through that square opening. So in full auto, the linear hammer here, which I keep calling a striker, will stop until the bolt's fully forward, locked in battery, and then it will release this. By the way, rate of fire in this is somewhere between 700 and 900 rounds per minute in full auto. These two notches, by the way, are for the top edge of the receiver, where the AK has a separate set of receiver or bolt guide rails welded inside, and the bolt actually travels sandwiched between the top and bottom guide rails. On the Vintorez and the SR3, the top fold of the receiver acts as a guide rail itself, or two of them, there and there. And we have the same notches there and there. So the bolt is going to ride on top of the receiver on these two flat surfaces, and those two little catches prevent it from coming out. I'm not sure what exactly this is. There was nothing in there. There are two examples of these guns here at the Armouries, and they're both empty. I suspect this was something that was used in the Vintorez, but I can't remember exactly what. We can go a few steps further here and rotate the gas tube. There we go, to that position. Take out the gas tube. That's just, well, it's a gas tube, very simple. That will then allow us to take out the charging handle. So the rod on this side will come out. There we go. We can pull that side out, which allows me to bring the charging handle forward, rotate it. Sorry, have to take the bottom handguard off first, which requires taking the muzzle device off. This has a spring-loaded locking pin. Push that pin in, and then I can unscrew it. There we go. So there's our muzzle device. Note that it is indexed by that pin, so it is very deliberately only deflecting that direction. With that off, we can just pop off the front polymer handguard there. There's really nothing going on there. It's just a handguard. And then I can bring the charging handle forward, rotate it out, and slide it out. So there's the front end of the gun, muzzle device up here. There's our gas block. Like I said, 6.1-inch barrel, so the gas block's located about halfway down. The sights, I should mention that. We've got an adjustable front post there. It's adjustable both for windage and elevation. And then we have a rear notch, very much like an AKS-U74, or AKS-74U, with two flip tabs, a 100 meter and a 200 meter. There you go. There is the whole SR3 Vikhr, or Vikhr, field strip disassembled. I find it really interesting. Definitely not a Kalashnikov, unlike the Grozha that it was competing against. Honestly, in terms of concept, I can't help but think of comparisons to the Honey Badger with this thing. Both very lightweight guns developed around subsonic cartridges. Not quite to the exact same purpose. The Honey Badger was really intended to be suppressed, where this was probably intended more for unsuppressed use, just because it was more compact without a suppressor on it. But this is definitely a gun that would have excellent utility with a suppressor. So it's interesting to me that for a gun developed so specifically for concealment, when they go to modernize this just a few years after its introduction, what goes away are essentially all of the features that made it particularly suitable to being concealed. So the very narrow, like pinch style of charging handle up here, they get rid of that and they give it a standard charging handle like an AK. They get rid of the very compact but also quite uncomfortable top folding stock, and they give it a traditional side folding stock. They put an optics rail on it, which of course makes it a bit wider, but also gives it the opportunity to mount an optic, which can be a little more general purpose useful. And they go ahead and also develop a 30-round magazine instead of the original 20, or in addition to the original 20. So that's the SR1M. This, of course, is the standard SR1. I don't have an SR1M to show you at this point. Maybe someday, but to me, very interesting. This is like the sort of the in the shadows Russian development that you don't hear very much about. This is very much overshadowed by Kalashnikov, and it is not a Kalashnikov. It's kind of cool to me that they took the Vintorez action and turned it into a sort of called a compact PDW carbine assault rifle something. We kind of need a new term to cover this style of gun. Anyway, a big thanks to the British Royal Armouries for giving me access to this piece to show to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.